This video is my full Concorde tour. Here's a little preview.
Like to be a pilot, young man?
I sat in the pilot's seat in the cockpit. What does these do?
They're the crate tables. So you can have your meal. Can't accelerate, you can't go supersonic till you're over the sea.
Why don't the Concorde fly anymore? Why is that open?
That's open so you can see it. That's the control panel for the fuel.
If you like the preview, please stay tuned for the full video. We are on our way to the Runway Visitor Park to see Concorde. It's next to Manchester Airport. We are nearly here. I was so excited. I love aeroplanes. We are here now. You have to get a token for the car park. You normally have to pay, but if you do a tour, it's free. Making our way to reception.
Alter air on the side. Just about to ride ahead. You have a very small aircraft on the roof system.
Where are we checking for like the Concorde tour and stuff?
Have you got it booked?
Yeah.
What time?
12 o'clock.
Here, in that case. What's the surname, please?
Connolly.
Lovely. For two of you?
Yep.
Excellent. Oh, we're all prepared. We like this. Lovely. So
Where
that
is
you
it?
just hand that in at the gate when you leave today. It's valid for the rest of the day. If you can be in the room there, the Admiral Suite, just before 12, guys.
That's where it starts there, is
Yeah.
it? Where's the Concorde? Is it?
It's in there, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. You sacked. So I've said we'll take it to the vertical.
We went for a quick look at Concorde before our tour started. It looks really good. This is where our tour started. I'm not gonna say a lot in this video because the tour guide does a lot of talking. So it's time for the full classic Concorde tour to begin. We watch a couple of videos first. The written plane will break into fire. Why is spring We are here. That's where we are. That's Manchester.
Hold on.
Find a nice picture of the stuff house. Welcome home. Well, that'll do. That's a nice one there. Okay, good. It's still good morning because we've got an early start. That's good. Thanks for all turning up on time. My name's John. Myself and my colleague Peter will be doing the tour today. Format of the tour is introduction, a bit of health and safety. I've started doing that. Then I'll show you a short video. Then we'll go through on board the aeroplane. While we're on board the aeroplane, we'll let you go through the flight deck in groups of 4. We'll see how it works. So you're a 2?
Yeah.
3.
You're a 3? Where's the other third? Okay. 2. 2s? 3. And a 4 somewhere?
Yeah.
You're a 4. Okay, I'll put the 2s together as much as I can. That's the thing there. We have 2 little ones in each group. That should work quite nicely. Okay, health and safety. Concorde, she's a big aeroplane. She's high off the ground. Please take care of the steps. They really hurt when you trip up. He said tripping up. They really hurt when you trip up. The metal. When you get to the door's about that high. Mind your heads. Turn right, sit in the seats. If the door didn't get you, the overhead lockers were about this high. Mind your heads. When you go through to see, I think I'm doing the cabin Pete's in the flight deck, we'll make our mind up in a bit. When you go through to see the guys in the flight deck, Concorde's thin and pointy outside. This time we're not fussed about your heads, we're fussed about the interpretation, so please be gentle. Mind your heads as you go through. Somebody will bang their heads when they stand up to go at the flight deck. They always do. There will be somebody and we'll all laugh. And on the way off the aeroplane, the door's still the same height. The other thing is no food and drink allowed on board. You can take water on board, obviously, if you want to. If you've got phones, please put them on silent. And I'll remember to do mine as well. And take pictures wherever you like. There's no problems at all. When you're in the flight deck is the bottleneck on every tour we do. Even the 2-hour platinum this afternoon, the flight deck will take most of the time at the time we'll do the tour there. So take pictures while the guys are talking in the flight deck. There's no problems at all on that. We're used to it then. Last thing is, while you sit in the seats, please don't play with what I call the fiddly bits. Please leave the tray tables, armrests and window blinds where they are. She's an old aeroplane. She's been here 20 years next year, 19 years. It's crazy, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy. So, and she's going to smell of leather when you go on board. It's absolutely incredible. So be gentle with her. She'll be very, very good. All we can do is keep her clean and show it to people. There's a good called Heritage Concorde does some work on there as well, but that's the thing there. Has anybody here flown on Concorde?
Yes.
Pardon?
I have.
Service flight?
Yeah, Singapore. Right on the lease, one to Singapore. Singapore, Bahrain, London.
All the way. Was it the one with their Singapore Airlines on the
Yeah.
side? Alpha Delta, that's the thing. You're a lucky person. If I say anything that you can add to, feel free to chip in. We always say that there. Had a lady, we were here last week, I had a lady who was actually on our aeroplane in 1975 when he came back from Kuala Lumpur. She was a BA cabin crew, she just very out, and she actually worked on Concorde. It was wonderful having her on there. No trouble there. Okie dokie, great stuff. I'm going to show you a short video now. It's a nice little introduction to Concorde. It's called Thank You Concorde. It's one of a series of 4 that were given by BA to their staff in 2003 to celebrate Concorde. It starts with the first flight of the French prototype. Then it goes forward to people talking about Concorde. Things to look for in the video. You'll see the flames in the exhaust. They're the afterburners. You'll see those. You'll see the switches for the afterburners when you go on the flight deck. Concorde's the world's only commercial aircraft with afterburners. Separate part of the video, you hear the captain say, "We're ready, guys, 3, 2, 1 now." That's the way every Concorde flight started. Different captain, different first officer, different flight engineer, doesn't matter. They all do. They work very, very procedure driven, which is quite good for an airline, I suppose. And you'll see in another part of the video, you see Concorde's nose down. We'll talk about how the nose comes down as in the flight deck and underneath there. Okay, that's right.
There at the end of the runway is Concorde 001 and engineers that join right at the back. Just seconds to go.
Loud enough?
The aircraft all on weight there. The magic moment for us. The shadow time. The human activity. Come on, 20 degrees, she's airborne. She's flying.
Over the last 27 years, Concorde has captured the imagination of people from all over the world. An extraordinary feat of engineering, a unique blend of power, grace, and beauty.
First time I've ever been in here. Never dreamt of going in because I'm retired.
I am thrilled. Every single cell in my body is thrilled. Words cannot be so incredible. Wonderful experience.
What are you going to tell your school friends when you get back to school on Monday?
Well, I'm trying to find some way of getting to the
Welcome to Concorde and our six-flight operation from London Heathrow to New York's John F. Kennedy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're through Mark 1, the speed of sound, no bumps, no bangs, Concorde.
There's the view of New York from the Triborough Bridge, there's the Sydney Opera House, and there's Concorde, arguably the three most beautiful man-made sights in the world.
We have carried Queen and Queen Mother, world leaders, stars. It has been an amazing magnet.
Phil Collins had dashed from the Wembley stage to Philadelphia by helicopter and Concorde.
It's been fun. I mean, only a fool such as I would do this.
For 27 years, British Airways Concorde has been a national symbol, a natural centerpiece for celebration.
Few hundred feet over the heads of 1 million people, maybe more. Concorde and the Red Arrows fill the sky.
We flew down the bow and we could see Her Majesty standing on the balcony. I've never seen a million people before, let alone all looking up and waving and cheering for Concorde.
She's brought cities together, brought people closer, and reminded us all that we can do extraordinary things.
It's just a magnificent looking aeroplane, and I just saw it just flying over our house, and I thought, wow. And every time it went over, I would run out and I would stand there so I couldn't see it anymore, and that's how it went on.
The enthusiasm never wanes. It's almost like every flight's your first flight. You know, you still get that cheesy grin on your face on takeoff, and it stays there till we touch down in New York.
As soon as you get close to it, you're just in awe at the shape of it. It's just a beautiful machine to look at.
There's sort of an aero expectancy before the aircraft sort of pushes back and starts its takeoff roll, and that is very exciting when you put the afterburners on and you get the push in the back. It's fabulous.
Speed back on 1, you're clear for takeoff. 27 left, surface wind 240 at 10. Speed back Concorde 1, roger, clear for takeoff. 27 left. Getaway ready? Yeah. 3, 2, 1, now.
Slam the throttles forward, the power starts to climb. Push back into your seat. Concentrating like mad. 60 knots. The noise takes over. 100 knots. That's it. All the calls come out from the engineer. The heart starts to pound a bit.
V1. Rotate. V2. Positive climb.
Before you know it, you're airborne. Just holding her back, you can feel she just wants to go.
It's just the most staggering experience. Everyone says it's going to be something you'll never forget for the rest of your life.
You can always recognise it. It's almost, I know it sounds silly, but it looks like a swan. You know, when swans fly, it looks like a swan with the shape of its neck.
The outside is so elegant and causes gasps of amazement even after all this time. Every time it's like, oh, there's Concorde, there's Concorde.
You kind of think, oh, I wonder who might be on Concorde, maybe famous film stars, just
They'll
like
still see that.
Concorde in New York or something.
Well, stay still, you're messing about. Sit back.
Year 2000, but must have been maybe 30 times, and that's, 30 nights that you're not away from your kids.
As I looked out of the window, I could see the shadow of light falling across the planet. fly. And, you know, you don't get that anywhere other than in a spacecraft.
The most wonderful thing about Concorde is that no matter how many times you fly and you think you've become a jaded flyer, there still is that amazing, exciting sensation when you take off and when you're up in the air. You look out the window and you can't believe the speed at which you're traveling and the vista of the globe. It's really spectacular.
She's just a beautiful bird in the sky, and that is just where she belongs.
As I always say when I come back in the ground today, hey ho. It's a nice video, that one, but it's not really relevant. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, so it's a bit sad, that one. There's another one we show on the longer tour called The Final Farewell, which is absolutely horrendous. It's about the last day of service. Lots of sad people. You've seen the video. Let's go through and look at the airplane. I'll just set this up with the next video.
I'm just going to try and find him.
Cool.
Time to go inside Concorde now. Here's some facts about Concorde.
Impressions. You're all starting to smile, aren't you? It's absolutely brilliant. Okie dokie. Let's go on board. So, as I said before, mind your head, don't put any fiddly bits. Come on up.
The entrance is low. The toilet room is tiny. It only has 100 seats.
Logan.
Go on, Fab.
What does these do?
They're the tray tables. So you can have your meal. Don't. Okay, so welcome aboard. Same question again, first impressions. It's not bad, is it? You've got 36-inch seat, which is just nice. The seats aren't as wide as some there. Peter's just turning the lights on in the flight deck, which is good. What I'm going to do, as I say, you'll go through the flight deck in groups of 4. You okay? What's up? Yeah. We've got, and on the flight deck when you go through, the instrument lights are on, and there's a group called Heritage Concorde done a whole lot of work on this aircraft, so the nose works. So if you hear it about 3:15 this afternoon, you'll see the nose cycle on the longer tour. These lights now are all LEDs, been replaced from the original tubes, which were rubbish. So this is the exact lighting temperature, colour temperature, that would have been on the aircraft in service. And they got these working as well, because they were just fixed. These now will show a simulation of a New York to London flight. This is just going to come up with the magic numbers there. How are we doing for this? Are we okay, Peter? Yep, he's ready. Good stuff. So I need 2 2s. So you're a 2? Have we got another 2 somewhere? Okay. The young lady that gentleman, you two, do you want to do the flight deck? Just leave your umbrellas and bags and that kind of stuff there.
Time to go into the cockpit.
Hello, welcome
You're right.
to the flight deck.
Thank you.
Hello, young man. Hello, young lady. Want to sit there, sir? That'll be fine.
Do you want me to sit down with you? Sit on my knee.
Sit on your knee, if that's all right.
See you, Logan.
Yeah, you can take photographs. I can keep chatting while you're taking a photograph. So that's where the captain would sit. I'm where the first officer would sit, and that's where the flight engineer would sit. And this seat would have come back electrically, swivel round, and he would assist with takeoffs and landings. As you can see, he's got quite a workload of his own, really. And where you're sat, sir, that was a spare seat, unless it was a training captain. That's where he would sit. Most of this instrumentation is actually duplicated on my side, so there's not as much as it first appears. You've got your airspeed indicator, shows them how fast they're going. Sorry, artificially rise and shows them when they're flying straight and level. Airspeed indicator shows them how fast they were going. That was unique to Concorde, the Mach meter, showed them when they were going through the speed of sound and beyond.
Why is there 2 steering wheels?
Well, one for each pilot, really. It's like dual control, but they pass control from one to the other. That's the these are navigation instruments. You've got your compass, radio direction finders. That's a radio altimeter. It was very accurate below 2,500 feet, so they used that for takeoffs and landings. And you'll see the sensors for that when you go underneath the aircraft. Quite an important instrument, that. Main engine parameters, you've got one vertical line for each engine. Pilots tend to scan diagonally, so they'd see at a glance if any of the engines are performing differently. Sorry?
There's 2 for each engine.
No, there's one vertical line for each engine. There's 4 engines, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. If you ever saw Concorde come into land, she was always pitched up at an angle, and that's so she could generate enough lift with the delta wing when she's flying slowly. But they realised when they were designing the aircraft, the pilots wouldn't be able to see the runway. So you had to arrange for the nose to droop down, and they used to call a droop snoot. And under control of this lever, what happens is the visor or the heat shield that you can see through there slid down into the nose. Nose came down by... nose came down by 12.5 degrees. The aircraft was pitched up by 11 degrees. So they got a superb view then when they were coming into land. In fact, on the original prototype, it used to drop down by 17.5 degrees, and the test pilot said it was like looking over a precipice. It disappeared altogether. I had nothing to relate to. That's the lever that raises and lowers the undercarriage, and there's the indicators that show when the undercarriage is down and locked. You notice there's 4 of them, because a little extra wheel at the back, which you'll see when you go underneath the aircraft, because again they were worried the tail might touch the ground when it's taking off, you see, because there's no lift without this angle of attack. Flight control computer, which incorporated the autopilot, auto land, auto throttle systems. Concorde had a very sophisticated auto land system, what they call category 3. You could land in visibility down to 150 metres completely automatically. Now you'd have trouble seeing on the ground at that, which was well ahead of the time, really. These are navigation computers, there's 3 of them, 1, 2 and 3. They talk to each other, and they also talk to the autopilot.
Is this broke?
That looks like it is, doesn't it? No, it's not, it's just an LED, that one. It's not, is it? No, it's, yeah. I have to check on that, I don't think so, I don't think it's broken. It does seem a bit strange to me, that. Yeah, this that was the little wheel at the back. These are the navigation computers. You've got 3 of them. 1, 2 and 3. They talk to each other, and they also talk to the autopilot, so they knew at every stage of the flight exactly where they were. These are radios that you use for communication. Everything's duplicated. You've got VHF radios, you've got high frequency radios. You've also got radios that are used for tracking what they call waypoints, which are radio beacons that are used for navigation. I'll just look round here and see where the flight engine is. You can see he's got a heck of a workload, really, because everything above this table is used to fly the aircraft. Everything below is used in emergencies and starting the engines. There's 13 fuel tanks on Concorde, and he had to make sure the right fuel was in the right tanks for every stage of the flight. Because he didn't just use the fuel to power the aircraft, he also used it to alter its centre of gravity to balance it. And also as a giant heat sink to keep the passengers cool with the air conditioning, and also to keep the skin of the aircraft cool. So he's constantly pumping this fuel around and taking the heat out of it, making sure it's in the right place at the right time. Because this aircraft got so hot in flight, it actually stretched between 6 and 10 inches. And one of the places where you could see just some of that expansion, would you just like to put the tips of your fingers in there, so my pointers? Yeah, you just bet your fingertips in there, can't you? When the aircraft was hot. And there's a photograph of the flight engineer with his old hand in there. So they weren't telling lies. In fact, when the last one flew into Filton, where it was built, he got the crew to sign his cap and pushed it in there. It's trapped in there to this day. So if you go to the Heritage Centre at Filton, you'll see it in there. It's quite a nice gesture, that, really. Like to be a pilot, young man?
Do you want to be a pilot?
Well, if you do well at school, there's no reason why you shouldn't. You know, there was a lady pilot on Concorde, and she started off as a hairdresser in Bognor Regis. She got a private pilot's licence, she went working for British Airways, and she ended up flying Concorde. So what an achievement back in the day. So if you do well at school, you can do whatever you want.
Why don't they fly anymore then? Because there was an accident?
No, they didn't build enough in the first place, basically. But if you ask Johnny, he'll probably go over that. I've no time to go into it at the moment. That's the reason. Really.
How is it stuck in the building?
Because it's retired now. It's retired now. You know, if you could send an extra group for me, that'd be great.
We're okay just to get a quick photo in the chair. Is that all right?
Sit down, Logan. Let me get past. Logan, look at me. Smile.
Time for some photos in the pilot's seat.
Right, come on then.
Come on through. Is that all right?
Yeah, brilliant.
Great stuff. We've lost two. When she went out to Bahrain, flying to Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Mumbai and Melbourne, Australia, then she came back to the United Kingdom. During the middle of August, middle of September, this aeroplane was going, in 1975, was going backwards and forwards across the Atlantic. On 3 of those days, September 1st, 6th and 7th, she crossed the Atlantic 4 times in one day. The only aircraft capable of that. History of supersonic flight. 1955, I was 2 years old. Powers that be were already thinking about supersonic flight. A study was commissioned, reported back in '58. Supersonic flight is feasible, but difficult. Difficult in aviation terms means it's expensive. So when the specification for the aircraft was issued in 1958, it said design an airplane to travel at twice the speed of sound, 1,350 miles an hour, to carry 128 passengers and have a range of about 3,000 miles. London, New York, that's what it's designed for. It also said be prepared with work with a company from another country. That country is almost certainly going to be France. We were up for it, the French were up for it, the Germans weren't interested. The only other two countries capable of doing it are Russia and America. Russia had a go, they built the Tupolev Tu-144, but they couldn't get the thing working properly. America, being America, went their own way. They said, instead of Mach 2, they said 3 times the speed of sound, 2,000 miles an hour. Which means instead of making the aircraft aluminium, they've got to make titanium and stainless steel, much heavier to engineer. They got to the wooden mock-up stage and they realised that it still wasn't going to work. They said 256 passengers as well, bigger airplane. Our aircraft, as the aircraft slows down, the nose comes down so the pilot can see where he's going. On the American one, the nose was so long when it came down, actually had to have a double bend. Otherwise it would just spiked in the ground. So going back to the drawing board and then design jumbos and all that kind of stuff. And interesting, the 747 prototype first flew February 1969. The video you saw there was March the 2nd, 1969. So Concorde and 747 are almost peers, and the 747s are just leaving service now. They're just about finished with them there. And Concorde should have lasted to 2015-2020. This aircraft's halfway through its useful life. The Americans spent as much money getting to the wooden mock-up stage as Anglo-French Concorde did to get Concorde in service. There's a lovely letter written by the head of the FAA about I've spent all this money and all I've got a wooden model. So this is going to flip. This is going to flip now, and it's a simulation of a New York to London flight. And you'll see the numbers start from 5,000 feet and start climbing. So that was 1958. The French were to blame for Concorde being grounded. Two French companies, Airbus and Air France. More about that problem underneath the aircraft. If it hadn't been for France, which have never flown in the first place. The British and the French government signed a contract to produce a supersonic passenger aircraft in 1962. The contract had no exit clauses. Well done, Julie Emery. They were both worried about the other side dropping out. So 64, the Wilson government came in. The finances of the UK were in a right mess. They did a full spending review. They saw Concorde coming over the hill. Going to cost a trash load of money. So they said, we're going to drop out of Concorde. It's going to cost too much money. We've got to go to the French. I can't do a French accent, so I won't, but they got to go to the French and they said, we're going to drop out. The French said, not a problem, we'll finish the job, you pay half the costs. So they announced in January 1965, we're going to carry on with Concorde, it's good for British industry. And they tried to cancel other things, and the seal of the TSR2, and that'll go to various other things as well, trying to save money. British industry made a fortune out of Concorde. The absolute mint there. These seats, these seats cost £14,000 a pair, fitted in 2000, 2001 there. They're really nice seats, but they probably didn't cost that much. I had a guy on one of my very early tours. I've been doing this for 10 years. Peter's been here for the full 18 years. We've been doing the tours. And a little guy, he lived in Macclesfield. He said, we did the cabling for the British pre-production Concorde, AXDM, the one that's at Duxford now. He said, we charged £1 million, it only cost £500,000. 100% markup. There's the money all there. The captain's seat. Yeah, you'll all have a chance to have a look at the captain's seat today. It cost £80 million to develop. 10% of the development budget on the driver's seat. It's a comfy seat. It goes up and down and twirls and does all kinds of clever things. But £80 million? It's money sloshing around all over the place. So the plan in 62 was to get the aircraft in service by 1969. They ended up when he got it flying by 1969. It was another 7 years before they actually got the aircraft into service. Come on through. Right. Come on through. You all right there? Right, have we got any more twos? You want a two? Okay, do you two want to come through with this? Do you two want to go through? Mind your head when you stand up, and mind your head when you go through. So yeah, the plan is 1962 was to get Concorde in service, in 1969 they only got it flying by 1969. It was another 7 years. There's a lovely 7-year symmetry, 55, 62, 69, 76. I'm deeply into patterns and things, and quite OCD about that one there. Does that start again? It should. Now these are 4-seat back televisions with 4 synchronized PowerPoint slideshows running. That's the way it works there. Absolutely brilliant there. So she entered service in January 1976 and served right through till 2003 when the whole fleet was grounded. Flight experience. What was it like? The meal on Concorde, best meal ever served in an airplane at the time. A normal aircraft meal cost about £5. On Concorde is £30. There's a division with BA tasked with keeping the menu nice and fresh, and the fabulous wine list, fabulous food and drink. It was still cooked outside and reheated on board the aircraft. If you travel in first class these days, they'll cook the meal for you. But in Concorde's era, it was all reheated. There we go. Mach 4, yeah. So this is a simulation of a New York to London flight. I know it's New York to London because it just keeps on going to Mach 2 all the way. It doesn't stop. If it had been London to New York, Concorde takes off at about 250 miles an hour. She's 50 miles an hour faster on the ground than the aircraft outside. So if the London to Heathrow to New York flight, take off from Heathrow, full afterburners, off you go down the runway with your tail literally on fire. Off the ground, as soon as you're off the ground and stable, afterburners off. With the afterburners on, you're burning fuel over 80 tonnes an hour. By the time you get to Bristol, you're about 600 miles an hour at about 29,000 feet. You can't accelerate, you can't go supersonic till you're over the sea, over the Bristol Channel. So that was the big problem with Concorde. In the 1962, they had orders for about 75, 76 Concordes. When they realised Concorde wasn't going to be allowed to go supersonic over land, all those orders evaporated. So the only airlines that ended up operating Concorde are BA and Air France, plus a share with the Singapore line, but it's still effectively BA. So yeah, once you're over the Bristol Channel, afterburners on, this time 2 and 2, so you get 2 nudges in the back rather than 1, so you don't spill the champagne. They've already started selling the champagne. Fly out across to America, and the afterburners on at transition supersonic for about 7 to 10 minutes, and they take you up to Mach 1.7. Then the afterburners off, and the natural aerodynamics of the aircraft take you up to twice the speed of sound, at Mach 2 in there. Why can't Concorde go supersonic over land? The big thing is about an aircraft, a supersonic aircraft, it generates something called a sonic boom. As an airplane goes through the air knows it's coming and gets out of the way, a bit like a bow wave on a boat. The faster the aircraft goes, the less noticed. All of a sudden, it hits the air before it knows it's coming. You get a shock wave, and that shock wave is like a cone, okay? It flies down. Where the cone hits the ground, you get a clap of thunder. Concorde flies so fast, she flies through the first shock wave, and when she gets to twice the speed of sound, you get another shock wave. So if Concorde ever flew past you, you'd hear bang bang, 2 claps of thunder. And it's on YouTube. If you dig around in YouTube, I think it's Concorde Sonic Boom. The initial picture's a bunch of guys on a boat, and I think the French, I'm pretty certain the French, and they're waiting for the French Concordes to fly past. And turn your speakers up and hear bang bang as Concorde went past. Again, on one of my earliest tours, I had a guy from a little village on the south coast of Ireland. He said, that's what that noise was. About 11ish every morning, 11ish, half past, bang bang as Concorde went past. He never knew what it was. 27 years, that noise. And that sonic boom is why Concorde wasn't going to be allowed to fly over land. So London, New York, oversea, easy peasy. New York, San Francisco, 3,000 miles, the design range, but it's over land, not allowed to go supersonic, so therefore Concorde doesn't work. She works much better. She's miles per gallon. She's the cheapest aircraft on the planet to run at twice the speed of sound. But she's only got 100 seats, whereas that A380, which is an A380 parked over there now, it probably is. It can have up to 800. They've normally about 550 seats. So it's all about pence per passenger mile. At Mach 2, the Super Cruise Concorde is burning fuel about 18 tons an hour. An A380 is about 14.5 tons an hour. So she's in the same ballpark as that. It's just the takeoff and the landing use quite a bit of fuel. So yeah, so it ended up BA and Air France were the only airlines to operate Concorde. BA or BOAC originally had ordered 5 Concordes, Air France had ordered 4. When the manufacturing committee couldn't sell any to anybody else, they effectively gave the last 2 British ones to BA and the last 3 French ones to Air France. All the British ones were assembled at Filton near Bristol, all the French ones were assembled at Toulouse. So that's the thing. But the bits were made all over the place. So the nose section we're standing was made in Brooklands, Weybridge. The next bit, the fuselage, somewhere in France. The main structure of the fuselage, where the wings connect, was made in Toulouse. The wings somewhere else in France. The engines, British, Bristol, down at Bristol, Rolls-Royce Bristol. The undercarriage, part of it's Italian, some of it's Spanish. Yeah, so the air intakes were made up in Preston, and the exhaust afterburners were made in France again. I can't remember exactly where the different bits were. So yeah, the flight experience, I've talked about how fast you went anyway, there's no trouble there. We're just about to get to Mach 1, you can see we're already at 20,000 feet. And it's interesting as well, the New York to London flight was a bit different, takeoff was a bit different to the London, New York. The big problem to get into New York, you have to fight a battle with the New York Transit Authority. The American FAA had already said you can do some test flights into Washington. So two Concordes, the British and the French one, landed in parallel at Washington. And once they got in, they're never going to stop. And but then the New York Transit Authority, whatever they called themselves at the time, said you can't come into New York. 3 main reasons. 1 is you're too noisy. 2, you're going to destroy the ozone layer. 3, you're not a Boeing. There was a lot of bitterness. There's one of the American airline chairman, there's a magazine article about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was in charge of whichever line it was, I ordered some Concordes. I had no intention at all of buying them. That's it, it was purely being mischievous. So to get into New York, what have you got to do? You've got to argue about the noise. So they did some measurements. Air Force One had been in when they were starting this exercise, measured that. Concorde's no noise than Air Force One coming into land, so they can't argue about that one there. Ozone layer, there's only 2 or 3 aeroplanes a day. You're not going to destroy the ozone layer. You are higher up. Well, there is a lot more ozone. And takeoff, Concorde's the world's noisiest aircraft. Fact. So don't press any of those buttons. I forgot to say that when you go to the flight deck, there's a bunch of circuit breakers either side. Please don't press any of those circuit breakers. The aircraft's electric, the flight deck's electrically live. So with the 28 volt supply is all live. The 115 volts partially live. That's the thing there. Come on through. So who hasn't been on the flight deck yet? 3. You're a 3. You're a 2.
No, we're 3.
You're a 3. Well, you 3 guys go through the. Then 3. 2. Any more 2s? Okay, go on. You 3 guys go on. I'm not so. There's going to be 3 more groups. Sorry, 3 more groups, Peter. So it's you 3. 3. Yeah. And then you 2. Then we're all boxed off. Right. Good. When the last group goes in, you might hear the patter of tiny footsteps as we go off the airplane once you're on there. But there's no trouble with that one there. Where was I? New York. To get into New York, you've got a battle to fight. Ozone layer, you can take that one off. Not a Boeing, they can't really argue with that one. The other thing is noise. Concorde taking off is the world's noisiest aircraft. Fact, she takes off at 250 miles an hour, they're about 200. Incredibly noisy aircraft, full afterburners. So every airport is surrounded by a network of microphones. In Manchester, all commercial airports, there's a network of microphones. Those microphones monitor every takeoff. If the takeoff makes too much noise, the airline pays a fine. In Manchester's case, the money goes into a community fund and gets fed out to the local community. About 2018, it was about £35,000 fines there, and went off the community. That was from one of the community team. So they worked out whether the microphones were around New York's airport, and they went out to Casablanca, positioned microphones in the same place, and did this in the simulator as well. They worked off a takeoff pattern, so when Concorde takes off, the noise from the aircraft didn't hit the microphones. So every takeoff after that, when the aircraft's 25 feet in the air, the tail's 40 feet, just so you get there. Once the aircraft's 25 feet in the air, the pilot begins a left-hand turn. Once he's up and stable, afterburner, it goes into what's called noise abatement, so we throttle back, and it's like somebody waving a ribbon. There's one of the Concorde pilots does a lovely chat on this one there, and it's basically the aircraft doing this, just missing a few populated areas, missing all these microphones, so it didn't make too much noise to take off in New York. So October 77 they got into New York, and that's when Concorde started making serious money, and that's the big thing there. Flight experience itself, I've mentioned the meal. I'll go through who sat where on the aeroplane. We always say the Queen 1A, Duke of Edinburgh 1D. If she's on board the aeroplane, she can sit where she likes, because it's normally a charter flight anyway. She'd be in the front and her entourage would be in the back. If it's a service flight, they shut the curtain and she's got the front cabin. Or I've seen pictures of the big heavy-duty curtain halfway across there, and she's the last one off, last one on. If the Duke's with her, she used to sit and read a book. If he wasn't, she used to get up and talk to the rest of her entourage. We always say Michael Jackson 2D. Michael Jackson get on board, pay for 2 seats so nobody sat next to him, missed the fabulous food and drink because he's covering himself in a blanket, and missed the fabulous meal himself. Madonna 3A, Bill Clinton 5B. There's a guy called Fred Finn, travelling on Concorde, businessman. He's still around. I was actually phoned me yesterday about something. He's looked at organising some kind of fine dining experience on board the aeroplane, and which we'll see what happens on that one there. He sat in 9A towards the rear of this cabin there. As I say, there's 40 seats in this cabin, 60 seats in the rear cabin. By sitting in 9A, he got served his meal first. So the forward galley, which you've all walked through as you came on board, there's the galley there. It did the first 8 rows of this cabin. The rear galley did the 15 rows at the back plus the 2 rows at the back there. So by sitting 9A, got served his meal first. He was a bit of a celebrity. Why have I mentioned Fred Finn? Because he travelled on Concorde 718 times. His company's paying the bill. Yeah. He had such a good relationship with BA that if the aircraft was full, he allowed them to sell his seat and he'd travel on the flight deck. He's travelled on the flight deck over 100 times. There was a bottle of champagne next to his feet every time Fred's on board there. In the mid-80s, David Frost had 2 shows of the week in the UK, 2 in America. He couldn't have done that without Concorde. Physically impossible. He had something called a BA Premier card. and which means when he checked in, it's a gift of British Airways. When he checked in, he got an automatic upgrade to the best seat available. On Concorde, that's on transatlantic, New York, London, that's almost certainly Concorde. Why did BA do that to give him that, give him the card? Because he talked about Concorde in his chat shows. Now, everybody goes off and makes a brew. He's talking the thing. I've just flown across on Concorde. That's worth a free upgrade there. So he's in row 26, right at the back there. Tray of cheese and biscuits, icebook, a bottle of champagne, a pile of newspapers. Worked on his show there. You heard his voice on the video as well. He's a massive Concorde fan. That's his son. Yeah. So as I said before, just before the end, Concorde was just under £8,000 return, £3,800 each way ish. What did you get for your money? Why did people pay that kind of money? Nice meal, tick that box off. Nice wine. Some people afford that for the wine, most people can't. What people are paying for is time. You guys are sitting on a time machine. Not quite a Doctor Who time machine, but almost. And I'm just getting back to get Mac 2 as well. So that's the magic of Concorde. As Mike Bannister said, it allows you to be in two, David Frost said, allows you to be in two places at one time. That's the magic of this one. Has anybody got any questions?
Why don't the Concorde fly anymore?
Quite extraordinary.
It is special. Come on through, guys. Right. Have we got a group of three? Yeah. You three. Can you? Do you think you five could all squeeze in one go? You got three little ones, haven't you? Do you reckon?
Can only try.
Yeah, correct. If you five, go. Peter, there's a 3 and a 2 coming through. Okay. You'll just sit yourself down. There you go. As long as you get two of the little ones in the captain seat, you'll be okay.
Thank you.
I expect that you maybe wouldn't like being called a little one. So, right. So we're just about time. You had a question, didn't you? What was the question? Why doesn't Concorde fly anymore? We'll just box this one off, then we'll go underneath. Basically, by early 2003, Air France never really made money on Concorde. BA did. Just before the crash in July 2000, Concorde was responsible for 30% of British Airways income. Okay, BA loved it. Afterwards, less so. 9/11 happened, so the travelling public stopped doing transatlantic so much. In the Twin Towers disaster, they lost 60 to 70 regular customers, and these were the guys at the top of the country, companies who also understood Concorde and paid for their staff to fly on Concorde as well. So they understood the thing. I used to work for Barclays at Radborough Hall. Whenever I went to London or down that way, I said to my boss, can I travel first class please? I'll do some work on the train, honest, all that kind of stuff. It's the next level up. Can I travel across on Concorde? Because I'll get there nice and fresh and do my stuff there. But early 2003, Air France, just about to be quoted public in the French Stock Exchange, means if they didn't have Concorde on their books, they'd get more money for the shares. So they got together, BA and Airbus, who were supporting Concorde by then. They got together and said, we're going to drop out of Concorde, which automatically doubled British Airways costs. Air France only had 5 aircraft left. BA had only refurbished 5 aircraft to put the Kevlar on the wings to stop tyre debris damage in the aircraft. So that doubled British Airways costs. Then Airbus put the support costs up. BA's costs were going to go up between 4 and 6 times. At that meeting, which I think was April the 7th, 2003, BA said we can't afford to operate Concorde, and so we'll stop operating where the permit to fly finishes. Permit to fly was October the 24th. It went right up to October the 24th. So the BA flights went right up to October the 24th. The Air France Concordes were grounded almost immediately, about 4 or 5 weeks. A few positional flights to museums, and that's about it really. So basically, 2 French companies, Air France and Airbus, are to blame for Concorde being grounded. There's a conspiracy theory saying that Air France didn't want BA to still operate Concorde, so they smoked the French government, talked to the British government, tapped BA in the shoulders and said, you got these aircraft for nothing, please stop operating them, but it would have cost British Airways a trash load of money to carry on it. And there wasn't the trade, there wasn't the same thing. Right, what we're going to do now, we're going to spend some time underneath the aeroplane. So we want to go down the stairs. At the bottom of the stairs, there's a little gap. Just go through the tensor barrier, have a look around the aircraft. Once everybody's off, I'll come down and we'll have a walk around underneath. Don't forget to take all your bags and things off as well.
This.
Come on.
This.
There you go, Bella, for a little girl.
Yeah.
That keeps you nice and dry.
Actually keeping.
He's got yours, I think. Sensible.
the seating you're saying all the way up?
It's all the way up.
I had
The
a
rear light should be on. I'm just going to go and tell you.
This was only half of the plane.
Last thing I've got to do.
We went to look at the back.
The light is not good in the rear cabin because that's the when they decommissioned the aircraft. They actually
I thought this were it.
Now that looks,
when they decommissioned the aircraft. When they decommissioned the aircraft, they took all they put basically neon tubes through the aircraft, and they were rubbish. And they weren't the standard thing. They kept them in, so the light in the back. I think this is
Ricky Sod's travelling on this, weren't they? Can I just go and have a look? Thanks. I think they lived on a different planet to these people, didn't they?
Everybody wants to sit at the front. Yeah, there's stories of supermodels arguing and fighting together. So everybody wants to sit at the front.
Time to look under the plane now.
Anybody's been on the tour? Should go through the back one.
Yes. I told you.
Mentioned this already. When Concorde slows down, it's just to tilt back much more than normal airplane. Very high angle attack, pilot couldn't flew forwards, but basically the undercarriage had to be long enough to stop the tail hitting the ground. That's why she got long undercarriage. The nose wheel's a little bit longer, so when she takes off, she's got a slight nose attitude, just helps the aircraft take off. I'll show you where the nose hinges when right at the end of the tour. Once there, but starting right at the front of the aeroplane, the spiky bit at the front gets to 127 degrees in normal operations. Round about where the flight deck windows, 110 degrees. Here, about 100 degrees, and that's squeezing the air. And Peter's already mentioned that anyway. That's squeezing the air. The stubby wing thing you see on the side of the aircraft there. That's there. Some people call it canard. It's not. It's a flat piece of aluminium, just on either side of it. There's one on either side. What
did you say?
Did you say minion?
No, I didn't say minion, no. We sometimes, aeroplanes are made of something called aluminium, and we sometimes say minion to get children, youngsters at schools to understand aluminium. It's really aluminium. Yeah, she's made of aluminium. That's straight there. That's my favourite bit in the whole outside of the aeroplane. Concorde actually slows down, tilts back, very hard with attack. The fin is masked by the delta wing. The rudder on the fin controls the aircraft in the yaw. Hasn't got any air going over it. So, back in Bristol or Toulouse in the 60s, you're trying to work out a way of getting around this. You've got to have the angle of attack to generate the vortex lift when you travel slow. So you could make the thing twice as tall. Great when you're going slow, rubbish supersonic when the frontal area's got to be as small as possible. So you put it straight on either side of the nose. As the airplane slows down, that straight drags in the air. It generates a vortex of air, two tubes of air. Those two tubes go down the side of the fuselage, just below the window line. When they hit the back, they come together and give the fin, give the rudder something to work on. That to me is quite impressive. It's a bit black magic. There's more black magic than that. The nose wheel itself folds forwards. You can just if I turn my pointy thing on. So there's the undercarriage doors there, you can see the undercarriage doors there. So the nose wheel falls straight forwards there. It looks too long to fit, it is too long to fit. It actually has got some mechanical linkage at the top, so it doesn't just hinge upwards, it goes back and slots upwards into the nose. If you look at the wheel itself, the bits you see either side here are hydraulics for the steering. So and the bit of metal in front of the wheel is anti-spray. So in a wet runway, you don't get spray. It's got a blade on because if the tyre was to burst, it'll chop the rubber off before it does too much damage to some of the cabling and the hydraulics for on the wheel itself. Come back a bit further. The forward baggage holder open today. And if you're travelling on Concorde, you have the same baggage allowance as anybody else in first class. Excess baggage might not come on this aeroplane, that's the difference. Normally when you fly, the excess baggage comes with you, but on Concorde it might go on a separate aeroplane. It'll get there in the end, most suitcases do. And there's a baggage holder that goes from sort of, turn the thing on again, goes from about there back to about here. So there's the baggage holder. Loaded by first principles. There's somebody in there pushing suitcases around with a conveyor belt to push the things up there. There's another one at the back, I'll show you in the back there. Come over this way a little bit. The thing flying around at the back of the hangar, by the way, don't be distracted by it. It's what we call a 360 simulator. You can, it's £12 to go on that. And you've got to be over that thing there. You can see it move around. It's a flight simulator, and you're in control of it yourself. And there was a fault with it the other day. It actually locked itself. It froze with two people in it at the end of the ride. If you look under the wing, see those oval hatches there. They're hatches to get in the fuel tank. That wing is full of fuel. Okay, the other side of that aluminium was wet. Just to get your head around it there. There's 5 tanks in each wing and 3 the fuselage. And the 3 the fuselage, there's 1 towards the front, 1 about halfway back, and 1 right at the back. They're the trim tanks, and more about that when we get back to the aircraft. After the Paris crash, they had to line the, all this bit of the wing here is lined with Kevlar. To do it, they went through those hatches.
Why is that open?
That's open so you can see it. That's the control panel for the fuel. So the fuel itself goes in there, standard Jet A1, and that's the control panel. It says how much fuel's in each tank. So when you're loading the fuel, there, you can do it that way. The other hatch that's open on the other side is the toilet service hatch. Yeah, that's where the toilet stuff comes out. There's one on either side. There's 2 of them. One's a bit round. Come over this way a little bit. We'll have a quick chat about the engines and the undercarriage. Some people say, why are the engines round when the air intake's, sorry, why are the air intake square when engines are obviously round? If the strikes on the front of the airplane are black magic, this is serious black magic. The air's going to the front of that air intake at 1,350 miles an hour. Jet engines don't do air going that fast. They want the air doing about 350. So the air intake takes 1,000 miles an hour off the air in 11 feet. If you look at the other side of the aircraft for a second or two, the engine assembly, the red dotted line, in front of that is air intake, then you've got engines, and the bit that's not painted at the back is the exhaust and afterburners, okay? So when the air goes into one of those air intakes, there's some ramps that come down, see where it says danger, they're not used for access, just up there. That's a ramp that comes down and squeezes the air. It generates a series of shock waves. Every time the air goes through one of the shock waves, the air slowed down, which is what it's wanted to do, increase in pressure, increase in temperature, and crucially, some energy is extracted. If you all remember back to science at school, or physics it was when I was a lad, you get a bunch of forces bouncing around inside a box. There's always a resultant force in one direction. In this case, it's forwards. 63% of the forward thrust of this airplane is the air intake pushing the aircraft forwards. That feels like perpetual motion. The engine's burning 18 tons of fuel help on the way, so it ain't quite there. But it's still pretty impressive stuff. Remember, this was designed by real people. There's zilch computing around in the early 60s, late 50s when this work was being done. Very, very small amount of computing. Come underneath the airplane. There's the undercarriage doors. So they're closed at the moment. You can just see the imprint where the tyre would be. So the doors hinge down. then the wheels fold upwards. Again, those undercarriages, they look too long to fit. They are. So again, just like the nose wheel, as the undercarriage, all your legs go up, the oleo shorten so that they fit in there. They've got to be that long to keep the tail off the ground. They can't go any further apart because that's where the engines have got to go. They can't go forwards or backwards because even though the wing is quite thick, those wheels won't fit inside the wing there. The Russians got around that problem by having more wheels on the undercarriage with smaller tyres, so their wheels did fall backwards and forwards. You look at the centre of the wheel, you'll see a little fan for the little fan there. I'll find my torch. Just see it down there. That's cooling fans for the brakes. Concorde is the world's first aircraft with carbon disc brakes. This is, if they'd been made of steel brakes, the first time they'd bought to take off, the brakes get to about 650 degrees centigrade. The first time they'd bought to take off, the wheels were just welded solid. I used to say all modern aircraft have got carbon disc brakes. I had 2 Ryanair pilots on a tour about 2 years ago now, and we still got steel brakes. If you ever fly with Ryanair, you notice they put the airplane on the ground. It doesn't hang around, on the ground, and they stop it. They take the shortest route off the exit from the runway to get to the terminal. In Manchester's case, they always come off. There's 2 runway exits just in front of us. They almost always hit those runway exits. A lot of airlines go at the end of the runway and come down. By not going down that all the way down, coming back, they save £35,000 per aeroplane on wasted fuel. Michael O'Leary doesn't miss a trick. They're all new. I mean, Ryanair tend to buy new rather than any reconditioned stuff. And but yeah, it's on the ground. Stop the aircraft dead. So when you fly Ryanair, expect a nice solid landing, and the aircraft will stop very, very quickly. Yeah. And if they had carbon brakes, it would take longer to cool down. So by having steel brakes, they can cool down quick enough because they're going to do a 20-minute, 25-minute, half-an-hour turnaround. That's the difference there. Interestingly, the world's second aircraft with carbon disc brakes was the BAE 146. And after you finish the tour, if you go at the front of the hangar around the back, we've got our Avro RJX, and that's a direct derivative of the BAE 146. That aircraft there at the back, the RJ, is probably the most important aircraft at the viewing park. It's effectively the last aircraft made in the United Kingdom. There were about 5 or 6 RJ75s or something made after it, but that one there was the future of British aviation and the last commercial aircraft designed in the United Kingdom. Come back a bit more. So you can see there's the air intake. I can open that door there, drop an engine out, number 3 engine. Then here we've got exhaust and afterburners. The temperature in there is somewhere around about 1200 degrees centigrade. Yeah. Even Concorde's magic paint can't cope with that. Come back a bit more. This is the control surface on the control surfaces aircraft. They're the only moving parts on the wing. It's called an aileron. An airplane's got 3 sets of controls. Ailerons control the aircraft from low, elevators control the pitch and stabilizer, and the wing's got a rudder on it. Concorde uses a horizontal stabilizer, you should feel it outside. So these are called ailerons from the function of elevators and ailerons. So all 3, there's 1 here, 2 on board the outside the aircraft, and they perform the functions of the elevators and the ailerons. Back of the aeroplane, you can just see a small tail wheel. That's there just in case the pilot over-rotates. The tail wheel takes the blow. And just in front of it, you've got an oval, a round hatch. Give me 2 seconds. Just in front of you, just there, there's a round hatch that looks like the oval hatches under the wings. There's a big fuel tank there, holds up to 10 tons of fuel. And that's the fuel used to trim the aeroplane, which Peter probably mentioned on board the flight deck. So the flight engineer will move fuel from the front of the aircraft to the back of the aircraft, and then forwards again as the aircraft slows down. Because on every aeroplane, the centre pressure moves backwards and forwards. Normal aircraft, 5 to 7 inches. You've got trim tabs on the horizontal stabilizer. Concorde hasn't got any trim tabs, so he actually moves fuel backwards and forwards to keep the aircraft in balance. Okay, dokie. Has anybody got any more questions? We're just about done. I'm just going to let that short tour go on board and. Peter, I'll shut the gate. I'll close the gate. Okay, let's come round to the front a bit.
What's that, the 20-minute tour?
Yeah, it's 20 minutes.
What do they do? Just sit in the seats?
Sit in the seats, they don't get the flight test. The guide's on, but we always try to get a 45-minute tour in 20 minutes, and it's just, it's just a quick experience.
Okay, guys, have you all got your car park tokens with you?
Yeah.
Can you check your pockets? There's one being found in the Avro. Okay. If you ever flew on Concorde, you used to get a supersonic certificate. You've only boarded Concorde, so I've got some boarding certificates for you today. So there's two for you. Excuse me a second. There we go. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's it for?
Read it.
It's just a little memento of your tour. Okay. Two. Two. There we go. Cheers. Thank you. Enjoy that.
Say thank you.
It's a certificate. Two. Okay. Please check your pockets, Dad, for your token.
This is the certificate I got. Some photos of me and Concorde. A photo of me and the tour guide. He was called John. He was very good. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe button.